Her Journey to Healing, Reaching Women with a Desperate Cry is an 8-week Zoom seminar in which Kamala and Winston help women to start living their best life by rediscovering the image of God in their life. Kamala, a licensed marriage and family therapist, joins her husband of 16 years, an ordained pastor, to marry the clinical and the spiritual. You will begin living your best life filled with love, joy, and peace. Register at kwministries.net for this life-changing seminar.
So anxious resistance. Now remember there were 4 categories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anxious resistant kids were on the opposite end of the spectrum. They didn't have a lot of self-confidence. They really clung to their caregivers, whether it's parents. When I say caregivers, I mean parents, grandparents, just old people in their lives who were, really part of that initial bonding experience. For these kids, they tended to have really exaggerated emotional reactions to stuff, but they also kept the distance from their peers. How did this translate into adulthood? That translated into anxious, preoccupied adults. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of formed less secure bonds with partners and feel really desperate for love and affection.
God is patient. God is kind. God is long-suffering. God never fails. God always hopes. God always trusts. God always perseveres. God doesn't envy. God doesn't boast. God doesn't seek his own, but is always seeking what's best for you. God rejoices in the truth.
That's right.
God doesn't define love. God demonstrates love. evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Live with KW.
If it's Monday night,
You are live with KW, and we're so excited tonight that you're live with us. We're not in our regular studio. Well, you don't know the difference, really, but we're really excited to have you on tonight. So, how was your Monday?
my Monday was celebratory because we are celebrating Mondays now,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And so I am celebrating life. I am celebrating family. I am celebrating health because those are things just to be grateful for.
And those are humongous things. You know, Kamala, Jesus says in Matthew 6, isn't life more than food and clothing?
Yep.
And when you think about that, there's some really deep truths to that. And we're celebrating tonight family. We're celebrating, but that is more than food and clothing. We're celebrating hope. That is more than food and clothing. What are you celebrating tonight? You can feel free to share with us what you're celebrating, but we want to say welcome. Tonight, I'm celebrating hope. Hope that things will get better. And you know what? I believe things will get better because Jesus said so.
That's right.
Jesus said, I'm creating new heavens and new earth. The first heaven and the first earth will be passed away, and none of this stuff that has plagued us in life. A young lady today called me to say that her goddaughter got shot on Saturday and her face is unrecognizable.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, that was. But guess what? Jesus says he's making everything new. And so I'm celebrating hope.
Yeah.
That a time is coming when all of that stuff will be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
So I'm celebrating today. I'm celebrating.
You know, if you're joining us for the very first time, you might be wondering, why are we celebrating Mondays? Well, Mondays historically have been that day that we don't celebrate, right?
That's what we used to call it.
From Monday with the Monday blues, the Monday, I don't want to be back at work, like that kind of stuff. But we don't want to do that anymore. We want to change our language surrounding Monday. And when we celebrate, when we find things to be grateful for, we go through life in a much different way than we would if we don't celebrate.
That's right. Yeah. All right, Kamala. So what's this stuff all about? Monday night?
Well, like we said, welcome to Monday Night Live, but this is also Monday Night Live with KW Ministries. And KW Ministries is a ministry that my husband and I formed out of our own desperate cry. And if you are like anybody else who has lived life, you have gone through some times when you felt like you were desperately crying, right? Whatever the situation was, whatever the circumstances
desperately
were.
Crying out.
Desperately crying out, I need help, right? And so we had one of those moments. We had that moment
that was
in time.
Our life.
We had that moment, not our life, because we haven't finished living life yet, right? So we had that moment in our lifetime where we had a really desperate cry. And out of that, we learned some things. Out of that, God gave us.
We learned the importance of therapy.
We did.
We learned the importance of forgiveness.
We did.
We learned the importance of perseverance.
We did. We learned the importance of vulnerability. And so here we are sharing not just our story, but your stories as well. And so every Monday night, we come on and we talk to people about their lives and allow them to kind of show us their journey, where they've been, how they got there, where they hope to be, because we're all still in progress. We're all still in process. There's probably not one of us at the end of the journey yet. Last
week, we brought on Dr. Chinwe, who was going to talk to us about the world of medicine.
Yep.
And we never got,
not quite.
We didn't even get to med school.
We didn't.
Because we spent that time focusing on life's journey.
Yes.
And so I'm excited.
Absolutely.
I'm super excited about our guest tonight.
Oh, yes. I think a lot of you are going to enjoy this traveling. Oh, it's not giving away.
All of us are going to enjoy this. So one of my favorite stories, Kamala, and I teach, as you know, I teach at the jail every Tuesday. And one of the things I tell them almost every week is the same story. This gentleman on CNN, he just got out of jail, and he was sharing that he had traveled the world.
Yeah.
And how did he travel the world? Through a book. Yeah. Well, tonight, we want to take you around the world. And we want to take you around the world through somebody else's experience. Dr. Sullivan is here with us, and she's going to take us to, we have several pictures of where she has been, and we're going to ask her and based on the questions we ask her, we're gonna go right back there with her and experience what she's experienced.
Yeah.
So I want for you to stay tuned for that. But before we bring Doc in here, I know Kamala wants to tell you something.
I've got good news for you guys. You can travel through a journey through the book of John, Revelation. You can journey through several places if you go to our store, www.kwministries.net/shop. You will find lots of, we believe, amazing products to meet your
Not just believe, they are amazing products.
They are amazing products.
And we have new products coming out.
Yes, we do.
We have a journey through Matthew, Lessons from Jesus. That's a devotional. And then we have
a journey to healing. It's a therapeutic approach, and that's where I kind of meld the clinical and somewhat spiritual perspectives into how do we get through life and healing, and how does God facilitate us on that journey.
And then we have a journey through healing, a pastoral approach. So that's 3 brand new products coming out. That'll be coming out by December. We have a landing page if you want to go ahead and place your order now. So we're grateful to you. And all that can be found at kwministries.net shop. All right. So we're excited. Dr. Sullivan is an educator. I was just sharing with Kamala that I remember Tarika from when she first came to Pine Forge. She had braids in her hair. She had her hands in her pocket. She was shy, but she's one of the kindest persons that I've ever met. Her parents, oh my gosh, they are the sweetest people. And Tarika is just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. And I'm so excited that she decided to come on with us tonight and just to take us around the world with her. She's a wide traveler. And she has a business called Tours, Black Girl Magic Tours. It's Atlanta's guided luxury mural crawl for brown girls. And guess what? We have ticket for one person tonight. We have ticket for one person tonight. If you are the winner tonight, you get a ticket, and she'll tell us about her company when she comes on.
So before we get started, in order to win that, you got to do some things.
Yes.
You got to talk to us.
You got to talk to us.
Ask questions.
Yes.
Comment.
Yes.
Do all the things, and that's how you get in the run-ins.
That's right, and that's all you have to do is just simply talk to us. So, for example, one way you can talk to us is we ask, what are you celebrating today? So we should see that fill up right now with at least 7 responses to what you're celebrating today. All right. Somebody said something to us in the private group. Make sure they can hear us, or we're not doing something that we shouldn't do before I bring Doc in here. Okay, I think we're good. All right. All right. Let's bring Doc in and let's have a great conversation tonight. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Hello, how are you all doing?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well, doing well, doing well. Where in the world are you right now? I want to know that.
Where in the world am I? I am currently in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm here for work.
Okay, all right. That's my old stomping ground. Well, Lexington is my old stomping ground, but close enough.
Okay, yeah, I see some signs for Lexington.
Yes. We're so grateful to have you on tonight, and we appreciate that the tour that we're going to do with you around the world. But let me ask you, what are you celebrating today? Monday for us is Celebration Monday. So what are you celebrating today or thankful for? Dr. Phillips is thankful for life. Sharon is she's thankful to be among the living. What are you celebrating tonight, Doc?
I am celebrating life as well. I'm celebrating good health. I'm celebrating that I have a mind that is still in good shape, that I am gainfully employed, and that I am surrounded by friends and family who truly, genuinely love me. That is a celebration.
Awesome. That's a reason to celebrate.
Yes. I mean, and there's so many reasons to celebrate if we pause to reflect on that.
Right.
I'm excited about talking to you as well tonight, Doc, because I can't wait to do some traveling with
you. Before we get there, I do want to ask you, where did your love for traveling come from?
Good question. I think my love for travel really was established as a child. My parents were very adamant about me having experiences outside of this country, and so they really wanted me to see how other people lived, how anybody lived, not just the people around me. So I grew up in New Jersey, right outside the city of New York. And so they really wanted me to see everything, how wealthy people lived, how people who were historically underserved lived, depressed communities. I saw it all.
Yeah.
And so I just carried that on with me
Yeah.
to this.
Do you have a memory of the very first trip you took somewhere?
With your parents?
Yeah.
I did.
That's good.
So I can share one of the very first memories. Let me provide some prerequisite information. My mother is Jamaican. My father is Guyanese. And my first trip, my first international trip
Was to
was
Jamaica.
was to Jamaica. And I had trips to Jamaica throughout my childhood, throughout age years. Like I can't count how many times I've been to Jamaica. And I remember getting off the plane and walking on the tarmac. And I remember my mom, just the sense of pride of being able to bring me back home, and her walking off of the airplane. And there were people who were standing around, and she was just waving to them. She didn't know who those people were, but she was just smiling and happy, and like just happy that she could bring me home.
Her baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. I love it. I
You
love
know,
it.
one of the things I love about that memory is just how descriptive it is, because I think that's a lot what traveling is about. It's that immersion in the experience, and to be able to go back and reflect on the sights and the sounds and the smells and the things that people were doing, and just to have that as your first experience, I think is just wonderful to be
Yes.
able to just recapture that for us.
That's nice. That's nice. Doc, about how many countries have you been to?
I have been to about 21 countries.
Wow. Wow. Well, let's not keep folk waiting any longer. Let's go through. We're going to start with, let's see what we have here. All right, Doc, tell us where you are. Tell us what's going through your mind. Tell us how you're feeling.
Okay, so this is a picture of me standing in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I was in Pisa, Italy. This was a few years ago when I decided I was going to take what I believe was my first solo trip. I decided I'm going to take some time off. I'm going to get on a plane by myself and fly to Italy. And before this picture, before I even got on the plane, I was overwhelmed with a great sense of fear. A great sense of fear. To be in a country that was known, a language that I did not know, around people who I did not know. I felt very, at first, I felt uncomfortable. But once I was able to get to Italy and realize how much space I interact with myself, like this was one of the best trips I have ever taken. I remember I hired a private driver to drive me around. He drove me from Rome to Pisa, and we just talked. He was learning English, and he was asking me to critique his English. He was telling me about the generations and how generations have changed in Italy. He talked to me about the history of Italy, the history of different cities, and just he became a friend in that moment. And I remember standing here in this photo. He took this photo of me, my driver, and I was just so happy that I had made the trip. I felt at the time it was a once in a lifetime trip to make, to be able to go across the ocean by yourself. It was a great time, and I really learned so many things about myself. I learned that I'm independent. I can do this. I have the ability to do this, and just a great food. Firstly, great food.
So is the pizza different from it is here, or you didn't have any pizza?
Listen, that is a great question. I actually did not have any pizza on that trip. I
Mhm.
don't think I've had any pizza. The closest thing I had was like a flatbread. I don't remember having any pizza.
Pizza. Okay. All right. All
At
right.
that time, I was like, I was weaning myself off of cheese, so I was deliberately
Right.
choosing some dishes that had a lot less cheese.
Right.
You talked about how when you first decided to make this trip, there was a sense of fear.
Fear. I heard that.
And then you came to the end of the trip and said, man, you got to this place of independence and enjoyment, kind of a celebration of the thing that you had done. I am curious for somebody else who might be thinking about, I really want to do this thing for myself, but I'm afraid.
They're scared.
What could you say to that person that maybe will help them move from that place of I'm scared to do this to, man, this might be an opportunity of a lifetime?
I think we have to recognize it just for what it is. This could be an opportunity of a lifetime. And I would hate to have this opportunity stare me in the face, not take advantage of it, and always for the rest of my life wonder what could have been.
Yes.
What could have been had I just done
Try.
this scary thing?
Yeah.
If I had just done a scary thing and moved past it, perhaps I could have done it again and been less scared. So my advice to anybody would be do that thing. And even if you are overwhelmed with fear, do it in fear.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Annika, hashtag do that thing, and then another hashtag do it despite fear. So do that thing. That's our first hashtag for the night.
I
Do that
love
thing.
it.
I love it. I love it.
Thing.
What's that picture, Annika? What's our next picture, Ann?
There we go.
All right. Talk to us. Where are we?
We in this picture, we are in Johannesburg, South Africa.
That's what I
This
thought.
was another opportunity of a lifetime. I'm standing by a
Yes.
statue near a restaurant called, this is in Nelson Mandela Square, and this is a statue of Nelson Mandela. This was a trip that I was invited on through my university. I was working on my dissertation at the time in Atlanta, and I was invited to do some research at a local university in Cape Town, or right outside of Cape Town, South Africa. So I flew direct from Atlanta to Johannesburg and then caught a flight from Johannesburg to Cape Town. But I wasn't going to just, catch a flight. I decided to spend like 2 days in
That's right.
Johannesburg. Gotta get all of it in. This was such a meaningful trip for me. I was able to visit some schools. This was a work trip. So I was able to visit some schools and really see how advantaged a lot of the advantages that we have in this country in terms of education. Our education system is not in this country is not where it needs to be, especially for people of color. But when I take a look at education right outside of Cape Town in Stellenbosch, South Africa, I realize how privileged we are. But outside of that, the students don't realize like they think they are super privileged. And some of the students were coming to school barefoot, but with such joy and such curiosity and such happiness that there was no way that you weren't going to be influenced and shaped by their smiles and joy. So this was a trip that this was also my very first trip to the continent. And there's something about stepping off of a plane and knowing that your feet are on African soil. There's something about that feeling where you're like,
Ask you that.
oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Like I am standing. This is the motherland.
Yes.
This is the motherland. So there is something really powerful about that feeling. And
What? Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Oh no, I was in that moment for a while.
What would you say was something that was maybe surprising or something unexpected? If you have an experience like that from this trip.
Surprising. Good question. I think it was just my interactions with some of the children.
Yeah.
It was the first time that I want to say it was the first time I had visited schools in another country, and I was just really surprised by, oh wow, I'm looking as I walk into classrooms, I'm seeing barefoot students. I'm seeing students who don't have adequate uniforms. I'm seeing the deficits. I come in and I see the deficits. And when I left, I realized I need to stop living in a deficit mindset. They were coming with the joy and the smiles. They were
Yes.
living in the spirit of gratitude. And I
Yes.
realized I need to be living in a spirit of gratitude.
Yep.
Because they didn't see bare feet.
Yes, yes. Hashtag that.
Stop living in a deficit mindset. Yep.
Yes.
Oh, Tarika, you can spit knowledge tonight. What did it feel? So, my first time going to Uganda, when I was leaving the country, I literally felt like a piece of me was ripping apart. And I posted that on my page, and our friend in Canada, she said to me that she was told that happens to people when they go to Africa. When you, on your first trip, when you were leaving, what was that like for you?
Leaving?
Yes.
For me, I did not want to leave. It was something I did. It was 2 weeks long. If they said I had to stay a month there, I would have been good with it. And so we went to the airport, my team and I, we went to the airport, trip from Johannesburg to Atlanta. Apparently there was snow in Atlanta, and the plane was having mechanical issues. And Delta said, "We are so sorry. Our deep apologies. We're going to put you in a hotel until this fixed." You didn't have to tell me twice. Like, that was the best news for me. I did not want to leave. Again, people living in a spirit, when you surround yourself with people who live in a spirit of gratitude, it does something for you, and it really changes your outlook on what you should be grateful for.
Yeah.
That's good, T. T, that's real good.
I love that.
What was it like being I know that wasn't Mandela, and I know that was just a statue, but what was that like? Like you said, this was the motherland. What was it like being so close, I guess, to Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to go to Robben Island. Island, off the coast of Cape Town, where he was imprisoned. And he was in prison for 27 years there. And I walked that prison. I saw the inhumane conditions that prisoners live in. And it just, again, just eternally upset, anger that people who look like me would face some of those conditions and those times, but just eternally grateful for the sacrifice of these great people who were willing to stand up and say, this is wrong. Let's end apartheid. And, it's just powerful.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I'm noticing just a lot of what I'm going to call both ands, where you're experiencing, gosh, I see this deficit, but I also experience this idea that I should not live in that mindset. I'm hearing, gosh, we should have never gone through the conditions that we did, but wow, how we've overcome. Like, I'm hearing a lot of that in your experience.
How did that tension through this trip, how was that tension? Because like Kamala said, it was there. It's, I feel bad for these children, but I'm learning gratitude. How did you manage that tension?
It was palpable, and what can we do to really make the living conditions of these children better? We wanted to get them shoes. We wanted to give them all of these supplies. And one of the teachers at the school stopped us. She stopped us and she said, "You came with your American eyes and you saw barefoot and you thought that was wrong. And these children are barefoot. Some of them may have shoes. Some of them have chosen not to wear shoes, but their parents they work on wine farms. Their parents are stomping grapes. And so this is something that's part of our culture. And so you should understand that.
Wow.
They are
Wow.
stomping grapes barefoot. So they do this. Like, this is what this, South Africa is known for its wine country. And so that's where a lot of parents.
Wow. That was
What a
that was
teaching moment.
that was a teaching moment, that.
Yes, absolutely it was for me.
Wow. Wow. Man, it's 7:26. We have a lot more pictures to go. Let's keep going.
Okay.
All right. Talk to us. Where are we?
We are in Budapest, Hungary, overlooking at well, this is Fisherman's Bastion, overlooking the Parliament building. And this is a trip that I decided to take because Winston, you and I went to high school with someone named Sharita Bozeman, and I remember her talking about how beautiful Hungary was, how beautiful Budapest was. And I said, okay, well, let me take a look. I took a look at some of the pictures of Budapest and I said, oh my goodness, this is just a beautiful place in terms of architecture and buildings. So invited a friend of mine, Tiffany, who also went to high school with me at Palm Forge, and we went to Hungary and had a blast. It was really a trip of leisure. We went to a world famous hot bath or bath spa, I should say. And I think it's March or April. So as you can see, I have on some long sleeves and boots, but the hot bath was outdoors, and you just kind of sit in the hot tub outdoors, and it was just a great leisure trip. This is one of the trips that I didn't bring a laptop and I didn't do anything. And sometimes you just sometimes need to rest.
Yeah. So talk to us. What are you looking at? What's going through your mind? What are you experiencing right there in that moment? Talk to us. Take us right there with you.
At this moment, I'll tell you what, and this is something that I will probably, for most of my pictures, in that moment, I'm probably thinking, I'm living a blessed life to be able to see this.
Yeah.
I don't know what percentage of my friends and peers are able to have these experiences, but to be able to look at building built hundreds of years ago in other countries, on my leisure time, it's a life of again, living in a spirit of gratitude. And I take time, and the people who I travel with, usually we definitely take time to count our blessings and say, this is not reality. And so we're grateful and thankful for this.
Mm-hmm.
Less about the beauty, but just more about the gratitude here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just in thinking about your travel experiences so far, I found myself wondering, for people who they want to have these experiences, and I know this is kind of a pause in the conversation, but they want to have these experiences, but they say to themselves, gosh, I'm never going to be able to afford that.
Yes.
I'm never going to be able to do these things. What have you found in your travel journey that might encourage somebody who thinks that cost is always going to be a barrier?
To prioritize it.
Well, if travel is something that people truly want to do, again, just a beat on what Winston said, really prioritizing it. And I would say travel is actually not as expensive as some people would think. So there are plenty of ways to get to some of these destinations for I pre-pandemic, I was traveling, flight and lodging together. I would research the best deals, and I would spend less than $1,000 on lodging and flight together for 6, 7 days of travel.
Mm, mm. You see, I wanted to ask that question because I know that, just over time, over the years of knowing people, that cost always seems to be the conversation when it comes to travel. But I also know, kind of based on experiences like yours, that there's so many people who say, it's not as bad as you think it might be. And so I just want to reiterate for the audience, you want to live some of these experiences that Doc is walking us through, it is indeed possible.
But let me ask you before. Well, let's go to the next one, and I'll ask you before we go out. Let's go to the next one.
Oh man.
All right. Yes. Talk to us, Doc.
Okay, so in terms of cost, this is in Rio, Brazil, and it was my first trip to South America. My trip to Brazil was my first trip to South America. I mean, this is just a destination that's on many bucket lists. I got this flight for about $560, which is unheard of, but I did the research. Was able to go with a friend of mine. We had a blast of a time. Brazil, quite literally, and I say this often, is one of the most beautiful, aesthetically beautiful destinations that I've ever seen around the world. To see Christ the Redeemer here, which is perched over the city, and it just sits on top of a mountain and looks low, and you can see it from the valleys, from the beach, like you can see it from everywhere, and it's a huge statue sitting on the.
What did you feel standing? Yeah, what were you feeling standing under there?
It was a sense of, this can't really be happening. Am I really standing here? This is a statue that I have seen everywhere. And sometimes you stand in these places that are travel landmarks, and you sit there and you're with someone and you're like, pinch me, because are we really here? Are we really here? Am I really standing here? And that was one of those situations, like, I can't believe we made it. Like, Brazil is really, we saw, and we actually conquered this long flight of stairs and taking a bus all the way to the top of this mountain. But to see the detail on on Christ's cloak and his hands, it was just amazing to see.
I can only imagine.
I imagine also quite amazing from the standpoint of how long has that statue been standing?
Yeah.
The craftsmanship that went into that had to be awe-inspiring.
About 100 years. This was about 100 years, if I'm correct. It might have been constructed in like 1928. Don't quote me, but it's about 100 years ago.
Wow. All right, what's our next one, Anne? Time is just dancing away.
Oh.
All right. We know this one.
So this one was a tribute or homage to my parents. So on the left, you see a picture that was taken in 2001 when I was still in college. My parents were visiting some family in Europe and promised that on a summer home from college, I would be able to join them. So my father has family in England, as many West Indian people do. And we took the channel from London to Paris, to France, and then drove into Paris on the left. So on the left is 2001 when I was standing there. My dad took that photo of me. And on the right, fast forward 17 years.
Wow.
I've taken to Paris. So I've been to Paris about 5 or 6 times. That the picture on the right is pink, and that pink coat was probably my third or fourth time there, and I wanted to capture. Hey, George. I wanted to capture a picture of where my father had first taken a picture of me in Paris back in 2001. So these pictures are in the very same place, 17 years apart. I think this was 2018.
What would you say is the difference between making
Yep.
that trip
As
as
a
a 17-year-old versus however many years later? How did that translate?
It's wildly different traveling with your family and your parents versus traveling as an adult and taking in the sight that you kind of want to see. As I think as a kid, it was like my parents were more so like, here are the places we're going to go. This is what you get to see. Versus as an adult, you outline your own itinerary and you name like, I've always wanted to see this, this, and this. I've wanted to eat in this restaurant. I've wanted to go here. And because you're an adult, you can do those things. The only thing is, for me, I am like, I'm so off with the time zones at this point. Like I'm still struggling with time zones.
Yeah.
I'm excited. So let me ask you this question. I have to ask you about Paris. Love. Did you feel any? They said Paris is the
City of Love.
City of love. So how was that? How were there butterflies?
So
Flying around? Was there?
I don't know about any butterflies, but so when I'm in Paris, one thing that I love to do is as soon as the sun sets, the Eiffel Tower lights up at the top of every hour up until 11 p.m. And it lights up for 5 minutes. And it is the most beautiful sight to see the Eiffel Tower just going off. Now, when it's cold, like on the picture on the right, I think that was like in November. It's a little too cold in Paris. But you go there in the spring and just take it in. I promise you'll fall in love.
Hey! I love it. I love it. Hey, Pastor Florman. All right, next one. All right.
This is on my second trip to South America. I had the opportunity to go to Cartagena, Colombia. Cartagena, Colombia. And this is a city in northern South America that is on the coast and has heavy Afro-Caribbean influence, heavy African influence. And you can see that in some of the artwork that I saw on the street. Many murals that reflected Black people, Black women, and even the taste of the food was very, had a lot of taste from the West Indies. And so I was very surprised, delightfully surprised to bite into plantain and fried fish that tasted like it had a little Scotch bonnet on it. I was like, okay, love this. This will do. So Cartagena was a very, very inexpensive destination, and it was also a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Tell me about these women behind you. Is there a story?
Yeah. So actually, this is just one woman. The artist had one person, and he painted her, and it looks like 3 different women. Or you would think it was 3 different women, but it's just her, and he just captured her beauty and her afro and her natural hair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Street. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Finish your statement. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, on this street, there were many murals that celebrated Black life, Black culture, Black people.
And that's kind of what I was going to go for in terms of gosh, as an American traveling to another country and seeing the display of other people of color just so vibrantly displayed, that had to have been a wonderful experience for you.
Oh, absolutely. It's listen, I love to be able to do this. I'm totally blessed. I count my blessings when I'm able to do these things and have these experiences.
Yeah.
Elder Phillips says, as an adult, you appreciate the culture as well as the sights. I recall the difference in appreciating the ability to actually live abroad and engaging in the host of countries, holidays, foods, discipline, and how the youth respect their elders. There is many differences in the rich cultural experiences. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right.
Yes. So this is an opportunity that I took to Belize. I was actually in between jobs. I had just signed a contract for a new job. I had just finished my last job, and I think I had like 6 days in between the two jobs. And I said, okay, well, for those 6 days, I'm going to take a vacation. So I went to Belize. I went to a little island off the coast called Key. And another country that I was very surprised about the Afro-Caribbean influence of I imagined that it was going to be more a culture of Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras. I thought it was going to be more so that a similar culture to those countries, those nations. But when I got there, it felt more like Jamaica. The foods tasted very similar. And when I got to the airport, when I landed in Belize, they had a Scotchies there. And I was like, oh, Scotchies, that's a Jamaican restaurant. So this was an opportunity. Belize was an opportunity for me to rest. I think rest is we don't privilege rest like we should. A lot of our American cultures, and it's good to take a break. Rest is resistance, and so
And
this was an opportunity.
Dr. Sullivan, will you talk to us for a second? Because you just oh boy, 8:43. You just talked about the importance of rest. Could you say some more about how our machine like we're as citizens of our country, we're reduced to machinery, we're reduced to production. Our value is placed in how much we can produce and how often we can produce. Could you talk to us for a second, number one, about how counterproductive that is, because after you burn somebody out, they can't give you their best work, and then the importance of taking that break, that necessary, might not be able to go to Belize, but taking that important time to take a break. Could you talk to us a little bit about that, please?
Certainly. So I think we're living in a time, and we've been living in a time for decades. I think it's celebrated to burnout. We are celebrated for working, being productive, and productivity is good, but we are celebrated for always be working, and sometimes we don't take the opportunity to rest. And I'm not sure why it's celebrated. Like we have bought and we've been conditioned to believe that if you are not contributing anything like to work, if you're not working, then your worth is diminished. And your body has to rest. Your mind, your brain has to rest to be able to contribute anything. On my tour, one of the women on my Black Girl Magic tour said, I simply want to exist and be celebrated for existing.
Yes.
Say it again. Hold on.
I don't want to be celebrated.
Hashtag and
Go ahead.
simply want to be celebrated for existing. I simply want to be celebrated for existing. That's good. That's good. Go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't want to burn myself out and just so that you can say I'm not lazy.
Mm,
And for me, my ancestors have done more than enough work for me to not have to burn
that's
myself
good.
out.
That's
I
good.
don't have to burn myself out to prove anything to anyone else. I know that I'm not lazy and I am a member of society. I'm good.
There we go.
I simply want to be celebrated for existing. You know, Kamala, at our churches, we practice that. We practice affirming people based on their intrinsic value.
Yes.
And I think that is so lacking in our society, where my worth is based on what I have, what I'm married to, what my education status is, what I do. And that, man, and I think that a lot of our anxieties come from where we find our worth, because there's always going to be somebody that has more than me.
Live up to somebody else's standard of me, then who am I?
Yeah, and there's always going to be somebody that does it better, has more, look better, all this. Oh Lord,
so it's impossible.
That was good. That was like, I simply want to be celebrated for existing. And if you're out there listening today, I want for you to know here are two people that celebrate you simply because you exist. We thank you for hanging out with us too, but we celebrate you for existing. Absolutely. All right, next one, Ed. Oh, and I want to leave that one for last. We'll come back to that one. That's the one I wanted for last. All right, talk to us, Doc.
This is a trip, obviously, to Cairo. I had an opportunity to see the pyramids.
Yes.
Culture. This was a shock for me.
Being around the pyramids, were you scared? Were you scared of the mummies? Were you talk to me about that? What emotions were you feeling being around the pyramids?
The pyramids did not bring out any fear in me. And I actually went with a group. This was a celebration for my 40th birthday. And I being with a group, there's a little less fear because you're moving in a number, right? In numbers. However, we were dressed as Americans, and as you can see, like my foot out, my shoulders were out in this photo, and we have to be very careful because, again, I hire drivers when we, and one of our drivers, we had two, actually we had three. One of our drivers picked us up and took us to the store. He took us to a restaurant, excuse me. And when we got to the restaurant, he jumped out and ran to the side of the van, opened it, and asked us what we wanted to order from the restaurant. And we were like, no, we don't need to order through you. We'll just go in. And he looked at all of us and he said, you're not going in. You will be harassed. You may be stoned. You can't walk around. You can't walk around like that. And a greater appreciation for, again, living in that spirit of gratitude of where I was born, what I was raised and conditioned to believe. And also this idea that there are some people who, if they don't cover their face or their arms or their shoulders, their worth is seen very differently than what it's seen in my own country. Total culture shock.
On that, because I believe in respecting cultures. I believe in valuing people's culture and valuing people's experiences. While I believe that, is that okay to hide people? To hide and again, I want to be careful how I ask that question, because I respect and I value other people's culture and other people's tradition. But is there some I don't know, maybe I shouldn't ask that, because I respect other people's culture. I just don't know how I feel about hiding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I too respect people's cultures, and you have to when you go to different countries. You're on their turf, and so the rules here don't apply there, right? So you have to be very, very respectful. Doesn't mean you have to believe. and share the same ideals, but you do respect. And I think at the end of the day, I am very right. If you want to live, Elder Phillips, right. So one thing for me is I want to live. I actually want to go back home, get back to Atlanta, go to work. But also in my mind, I think about um, how certain cultures, certain religions are rooted in sexism, in misogyny, and this belief that women and men are not equal. There is no equality of of the of the sexes. And so that's something that you have to understand and be aware of as you travel.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's go to the next one. Very good. Very good. Oh,
Where are we?
Here we are in Kyoto, Japan. And let me just share, I travel domestically for work. So right now I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. I live in Atlanta. And because I fly, I'm constantly racking up sky miles. And little known secret, when you stack your sky miles, you can take trips. I took this trip to Tokyo, Japan, and I paid $58 to go.
woo!
$58. So I was in LA. I was in LA for work and decided before I went, I said, hey, I'm going to be in LA. Let me see what the flights are from LA to Tokyo. And I did that. They were $58 plus sky miles. And I went round trip and stopped in Seoul, South Korea.
Yeah.
Nice.
What an opportunity, man. Wow.
Tell us about the dress.
So went to Kyoto. It is, as you can see, there's this shrine here. Decided I wanted to dress in a kimono, a very traditional cultural dress that many of the women wear there. And I looked at the dress, and it was I picked out these colors and the wrap to match the gold wrap, and the shoes with the socks on. And when I put it on, I felt so beautiful. I felt like this is just so pretty. A friend of mine took a picture of it with her phone, sent it to my mom, and my mom, my mom never has a compliment for me in terms of what I'm wearing. My mom was like, "Oh, that's a beautiful gown." So I just felt very, very beautiful. And that was another one of those pinching moments, because I felt like a trip to Japan was a once in a lifetime trip. And here I was blessed to be able to take it.
Yeah.
And I sat at that shrine. There was a little tea space to sit outside and drink tea. And I sat in that space and just reflected on how good my life had, like how blessed I've been.
Yeah. You're bringing back memories
Very
for
respectful culture.
Phillips,
It's a
who
very
lived in
respectful
Seoul.
culture of elders.
I'm sorry, Doc. I had cut you off. T, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
Okay. I was saying that you were bringing up back memories for Elder Phillips when she lived in Seoul. Oh man, we almost made it. Can you hear me, Doc?
Okay. Yes.
There we go. All right. Let's go to the next one. And
Looks like it's going in.
Yeah. Which I was expecting. All right, Doc. This is gonna be our last one for tonight. And I want for you to just take us here with you. Take us here with you.
Can you hear me?
We're hearing you now.
Okay. So Okay. Did you take okay, Tanzania. So I had this is another trip that I took Atlanta to Tanzania. So I learned that it's actually not pronounced Tanzania. It's pronounced Tanzania.
Oh,
And I was able to, yeah, that's what the locals have. That's what the locals said, Tanzania. And the first thing I asked was, I had a driver and a tour guide. This was a solo trip that I took to Tanzania, and I hired a driver and I asked him to really help me curate an itinerary for myself around some of the people. This was a trip that I wanted to see more people and engage with, like, with communities versus going to just the beach. So I stayed on the coast, on the beach, but I spent a lot of my time and mingling and meeting people. And here is one tribe that I was able to meet, the Maasai, and they welcome me into their community. They have huts. I was in a hut. The huts are very small, and they allowed me to sit on their bed. One of the women allowed me to sit on her bed. The woman that you see on the left of me, very small, very short stature. She invited me into her. I saw where she washes her plates in her room, and to me, it was top 5 best experiences in the world to be able to see what looked like these people invited me into their tribe, and they invited me into their home, and I sat on their bed. Now, to many, that doesn't sound like much, but can you imagine? Have you ever invited a stranger to sit on your bed to see how you wash your
right.
dishes? Like, that was that was an amazing opportunity for me. And then they invited me to not to take my clothes off, but to put their wraps on me, and they wrapped me. So what you see is me wearing some of the jewelry that they themselves created, along with some of the wraps that they had, and amazing. Didn't speak their language, they didn't speak mine, but there's a universal love. There's a universal language of love and welcome and joy. And I experienced that with this Maasai tribe
Yeah.
once in a life.
Hashtag. There's a universal language of love and welcome and joy. There's a universal language of love, welcome, and joy. I think that's a good place to say thank you so much,
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan, for spending tonight with us, for sharing your journey with us. I
I
enjoyed
journeyed the
Paris.
world.
Yes, I journeyed the world tonight, and thank you for sharing these pictures. Thanks for sharing your story with us. It was amazing, and I if we had time, I'd have loved to have asked about the therapeutic value
Yeah, yeah.
of these trips, but maybe you'll come back one day and we can talk about that. But we want to say thank you so very much. Now listen, somebody out there, you are going to win a tour. Tell us real quick before we go. Tell us about your tour company in Atlanta.
I have a tour operating company in the city of Atlanta, and it is called Black Girl Magic Tours. And we celebrate Black women through an exploration of mural art around the city. And we do this in style in a luxury sprinter going around to various murals that celebrate and uplift Black women. And we do that through conversation and discussion around uh, community.
Hmm.
That sounds cool.
That sounds good. And somebody's gonna win that tonight. Who won that, Annika?
Let's see. Drum roll, please. See how long we can keep this up.
Oh!
Good job, George.
And well, the thing about George is Pastor Flarman loves to travel.
Yes.
Pastor Flarman, you just won. I'm assuming you'll give this to your wife because this is for brown girls.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming you'll give this to your wife. Um, But so please, Pastor, head over to claim your prize at www.kwministries.net/claim your prize, and we will give you the detail on how to
claim your prize.
To claim your prize. Dr. Sullivan, thank you for this hour. We're doing Thank You Mondays, and I'm going to say this because I want to tell you how much I appreciate you tonight, and how much I'm grateful for you. We're in my office at church because we don't have power at the house. Really bad storm came through on yesterday. And this has really, really lifted my spirit.
Absolutely. I traveled the world tonight.
And so we want to tell you thank you so very much, ma'am. We're really grateful. You're muted, Doc.
I'm so sorry. I am so grateful for this opportunity, and I appreciate the invitation. Thank you all. Much love to you.
Much love to you, ma'am. Take care. Please tell your parents I send my love.
Definitely will.
All right. Take care. Thank you. You're welcome, Elder Phillips. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
And remember, if it's Monday night,
you're live with KW. Have a wonderful week, everybody.